Hi, friends. Welcome back to Sustainably Speaking, a podcast designed for the environmentally curious. Every episode, we're going to talk about topics that relate to the environment, sustainability, and people. We're committed to bringing you the truth in bite-sized pieces, talking about why this topic matters and what you can do about it. And we're always going to try to end on a good note. I hope this podcast serves as a safe space for you to come without judgment, to learn, to get resources, and to get curious. We're going to jump right into it today. I have a good friend of mine with us today, Kendall, and we're going to talk a little bit about water and water sustainability. But first, I wanted to give her some time to introduce herself. And
Hi, so I'm studying with Sequoia. That's how we met, and we both have an interest in sustainability. I'm definitely very focused on water in my career, in my general interests, and just growing up in the Great Lakes. So that's why we're here.
can you tell us a little bit about why water is such a central piece of conservation and sustainability?
Yeah, so I mean, if you think about it, water's our life. It's everything. It's connected to everything. Everything we do, our livelihood, our health, the environment around us, our survival. It all requires clean water. So that's why it's just such an important part of everything that
Yeah.
that we touch and we do. And yeah.
Yeah, right, definitely.
Yeah.
What are the biggest threats to clean and sustainable water today?
So personally speaking, and like what I've seen, especially in this region, we just haven't always been super cognizant of like water's importance and how much every single thing that we do affects it. There have been improvements. Like after the Industrial Revolution, we kind of just like went wild and there was no regulations. We kind of realized after that what the effects of that can be, what the negative impacts can be on that like unchecked pollution. So there are changes, but still to this day across the world, everywhere. I think the biggest threats are overuse, just kind of treating water as like an unlimited source, pollution, of course, and overheating. So we're kind of, we might not be putting like pollutants into the water in some cases, but we're changing the temperature and changing the ecosystems within the water.
Right,
So
right.
yeah.
What would you say are some hidden ways our daily lives depend on sustainable water systems?
So kind of like I said before too, it touches everything. Everything we purchase uses water, like to manufacture it, to transport it. Um, all the food we eat, of course, like in agriculture, we use a lot of water in meat and dairy farming. We use a ton of water in vegetable and fruit farming. And then on top of that, how we treat the agriculture, if we're using pesticides or herbicides, things like that, that all goes into our water system. That's a big part of it. The electricity we use, the medicines we take, all of that uses water. Some of it uses it more, some of it uses it less. Sometimes it's used and then it can get back into the water system. Sometimes it's used and then it's like kind of damaged forever. So um, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And we just have to be thoughtful about how we use it, I think,
Yeah,
is the
right.
big part of it.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
I want to back up a little bit.
hmm
And are you able to explain to us what sustainable water means?
Yeah. So I think, in my perspective, sustainability is kind of balancing things, right? It's like we're going to use water. We can't live on this earth and kind of be humans and do some of the things that we want to do without using water in one way or another, in every way, basically.
Yeah.
But I think if we can look at it more as part of us and part of our life, using it more responsibly, using it in the thought of protecting it for future generations and not just using it for what we need and that's it and that's great and let's keep moving. Just more of a forward thinking, more collaborative too, I think would be good because all of the water that we use here in Michigan, it goes across the world in like months,
Right.
it's everywhere and we all use the same water. One of the things that we've talked about several times in classes and things like that too is that um, I think we have to try to shift our focus and shift our mindset on the environment being the separate thing or water being the separate thing. It's literally our body, and we're all part of the environment. We are not something that's separate from the environment and we can like visit it and then go home and then our tap water goes directly into the environment and comes directly from the environment, so it might go through some processes before and after, but I think kind of shifting our mindset to being more collaborative and more inclusive of all of that would help us to protect it a little easier and without so much like strain, I guess, you know.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point too about how we're not like a separate entity from the environment and from the water. And as much as we use and take from the water, it's also our responsibility to use it right and sustainably and do the right things to keep that cycle going for all of us. But I did want to kind of jump into like what we can do about being more sustainable for our water systems.
Hmm.
So besides shortening our showers, what are everyday actions that really make a difference in water conservation?
So personally speaking, like on an individual level, if you have a backyard, you know, instead of running sprinklers all the time, having this huge green grass area, which is beautiful sometimes, but planting more native plants, kind of reducing your like footprint on that really impermeable grass backyard or front yard that we're kind of used to now. If we can kind of scale that back a little bit, get more native plants that absorb more water, um, use a barrel instead of watering your grass from, you know, the tap water. That's a thing that you can do that is a relatively easy change. And then kind of just understanding what your water source is. Like, where does your water come from? Where does it go? Like, if you pour something down the drain, do you know where that's going? Because in some cases, especially out like in your front yard, or at the street level, like if you pour something into, you know, a ditch or a street or something, you might not even remotely think about where that goes. It might go directly to a stream. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand and don't think about. They may
Right.
know it, but it might not be part of their daily life, which is totally understandable too. But I think if we can again kind of shift our mindset to being a little more thoughtful on kind of how we do things on a personal level. But additionally, kind of helping to support some of your local organizations too that protect watersheds or work on policy changes. A lot of this stuff is kind of continuing because of the way that our society has always worked. And if we can help to make some changes on the policy level too, maybe some of those changes can kind of influence both like up and down, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a
So
good point. And I really like your first point about maybe thinking about what we're doing before we do it. I think in most areas of conservation or sustainability, taking a step back and thinking about the long term outcomes of that action is always a great step to not be so impulsive of like, where is this water going? Is this going to affect the water if I do this thing? Is, my action worth this item being on the earth forever, right? Like all of these things
mhm.
kind of break down to like taking a second, thinking about it. Sometimes it is worth it. Sometimes it is a convenience thing and we just need to like keep going. But for the most part, being able to take a step back and like really think about what we're doing is such a like great first basic step of like conservation being sustainable. So I really like that
Yeah.
point. And also just like connecting with the organizations that really help. They need our help, everyone's help. They can't do it alone. So I think that's also a really great point.
Mhm.
Um, what's the most meaningful way individuals can reduce their water footprint?
So a lot of the ways that I just talked about too, like in your yard, I know it's kind of a little bit of a misconception too, but even using your dishwasher can be more ecologically friendly
Yeah.
than like doing dishes in the sink just because it's a little more efficient, things like that. Just kind of making those everyday choices. If they might be little, they might feel unimportant, but um even if you can't be perfect, like I look at some of the choices that I make and I'm like, how can I be somebody that's in conservation and sustainability and have this one thing that's not very much not like environmentally friendly or whatever, but we can't always be perfect. But that doesn't mean that we can't make a change and we can't be better, you know? So I think just those little steps where you can are a good way to do it. And honestly, just talking to people. I think if you talk to people that may not have this mindset or may not think about these things, it might not be high on their priority list. If you can just kind of plant a seed here and there, that's one of your biggest impact places for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like this kind of comes back to another episode of like our privilege of like being able to talk about these things and like knowing that like we are making a difference. But there are, you know, places and areas even not so far from us that like that aren't privy to great water systems or clean water or things like that, that just being able to like talk about it and share is such a great, again, like first step in like kind of making a better footprint for yourself. So I think that's a really great point. I wanted to end on some good news for everyone. So I wanted to kind of like share this with you and with everyone. A trio of scientists have figured out how to turn coffee grounds into little water cleaning robots.
What?
They call them coffee bots, and they're able to remove oil, microplastics, and toxic dyes, usually from like fabric and like textiles or medicine, from water. It works because coffee grounds have this really porous texture that is able to trap pollutants, and then they add iron oxide, which is basically rust, that makes them magnetic. So this allows them to guide the robots through polluted water, but also allows them to be reusable after they're done.
That's super cool.
I know. So what's wild is that all this comes from stuff that we throw away every day, our coffee grounds, our coffee waste. These researchers are now testing solar-powered versions of this and how different types of coffee grounds perform, which I thought is really interesting.
Yeah, that's super cool.
I feel
love
like
to hear that.
If I knew that one performed better, I'd be like, I'm drinking this coffee. Like, that's the coffee I'm drinking from now on.
Right.
But it's just a really cool example of how using simple everyday materials can tackle such a massive environmental impact.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
There's a local company too, and I'll have to look it up, but they make sponges out of wool, because right now our sponges are all made out of plastic.
Yeah.
And they get really gross and we throw them out, and microplastics get into the water because of them. It's a whole thing. But this local company, they have been I just learned about it like a couple days ago, but they make them out of wool too, which is another thing, another thing that like already here. It's something that's biodegradable.
Right.
It's not, so
That's
it's
really
cool to hear that people are, just focusing on these things and spending their life like trying to figure these things out for us so that these problems can be better. You know?
I feel like it could just be simple sometimes, a simple solution.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so cool though.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today on Sustainably Speaking.
Anytime.
And thank you all for taking the time to learn this with me today. Like, subscribe, do all the things, and keep an eye out for our next episode. Thanks, everyone.